Uh, Jairam, hi, great to have you on the show, and congratulations. Firstly, a meaningful recovery coming in your stock price, both yesterday and even today. But I want to talk about, the related party disclosures, which sort of, were missed, and the fact that they were material in size. Tell me now, as you look back, how did such a lapse pass both internal controls and, your auditor review as well?
Yeah, good morning to you. So fundamentally, the internal investigation reveals that the disclosures were not missed. It was notes to account that was missed. I think that's the correct perspective. And of course, people did build a lot of other biases they already carry in their minds about this business, and they said governance and this and that. Fundamentally, this was a notes to account that was not printed. Maybe the previous version had come in. So simple solution for this is to put a proper software tool to ensure that we don't miss out on the printing of these in the notes to accounts, because this is a contra entry, right? There is one subsidiary which is showing it, the other one it got missed. That were the only two things. So when you manually check all of these things, obviously you can always point out saying that at this stage it got missed. I think we are trying to get a systemic improvements on these to make sure that these at least the possibility of these is minimized. But if you were to really score through the various financials filed by various other companies, you will find that there will be inadvertent errors of this kind. So I think the more fundamental issue was that they linked everything to this, and they said, "Oh, this is the issue which is causing the company to get into trouble and so on." But actually speaking, they were unrelated. And this disclosure also kind of this was done long time back. Actually, sometime in August we had filed this, and yeah, the lesson for us is that we'll make sure that next time onwards, the double checking is done so that there are these kinds of notes to accounts are fully checked before they. But actually, the numbers remain the same. The P&L and the balance sheet does not change. From that perspective, nothing was missed actually. Yes, there was notes to accounts which generally rarely read by people actually. But anyway, somebody did take the trouble of going through, and we're really thankful that he pointed out all these things. And so with that thing, I think that episode is completed, and we have taken our lessons, saying that we have to make sure that once the company grows, the entire every little letter has to be properly done and scrutinized and put, and that we stand corrected on that.
Indeed, you never know when someone's looking with a magnified glass. But Jairam, also, your contingent liabilities and guarantees, they have also spiked because of Iskram Echo, right? When is it that these start tapering out? And what is the risk that, that could sort of slow down your cash flows?
Yeah, so actually, it's a point in time. If you take out anything, then obviously it looks very different from what it needs to convey. They should see a trend. And we have adequately explained these contingent liabilities. Contingent liabilities, you see, there are two things. One thing is to create a bonsai plant without any growth, looking perfect, but then it's not growing. The other thing is to improve the parameters, and then of course grow the plant also. Like I think the previous speaker was talking about a short window. I think many people don't understand. I think over time that manufacturing is the one which will give you the edge in all of these areas, whether it's AI, whether it's anything else for that matter. So those who hold manufacturing bases in their country are the ones who are going to succeed. And that's why there's so much fight between the global superpowers to get manufacturing back in their, let's say, countries. So from that perspective, if you really see, these contingent liabilities are indicative of growth where they are employed. They're employed to get, let's say, some ability to borrow for working capital in the subsidiary. Subsidiary working capital borrowings are dependent on how much business growth there is. So the purpose for which it's material to look at the purpose for which any funding is done, either by the way of guarantees or by the way of any other cash subsidies and so on. So if you really look at our company, I think we have also turned around a good growth. Earlier, when we raised money for the other two projects, there was skepticism saying that, are you really going to do it? And then it turned out that we were the first in the country, ahead of many of the other big names, to actually ship out the assembled chipset. And also the factories are pretty much ready. And then the second project also is getting ready. So yeah, with diligent, I think all of these funds that are raised can go into newer avenues, and which will keep us ahead on the technology curve, and then extend the life of so-called commoditization. So as you know, we are not into the consumer products. We are into the professional electronics segment, which is driven more by technology rather than any other, let's say, any other trend. And it's not arbitrage based, it's based on just being the best in the world. And so I think that's what people, I'm sure investors, analysts, and all the commentators will eventually realize that this is where the salvation of the country remains, wherein you become a leader in the high-tech manufacturing space.
Mr. Sampath, hi, this is Harsha. Point taken, but let me try to shift focus. The receivables number that has come in is around 1,360 crore. And let me try and break this up. Within the meter contribution, the smart metering contribution to this receivable number, I understand, is nearly 700 crore, and of which 240 crore is a legacy receivable. I'm trying to understand whether, and this has been a receivable number which has remained outstanding for nearly a year, if I'm not wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Does this run the risk of not coming through altogether? And I know that you're going to discount this number already, and it's going to be a non-recourse discounting which you're going to do on this 240 crore, but that will mean that you receive a lower number, right? And therefore, I'm trying to guess, is there a concern with regard to this receivable number?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of misunderstanding about this.
Sure, yes.
So if the receivables are not due within a year, they are not called current receivables, but they are added to other non-current assets, right? So this 240 crore, whatever number as of H1 FY26, represents that number. It is not sitting as current receivables because they are not due to be received this year. However, it doesn't look good because we need to fund it, and our funding, when we fund it, then there is interest cost to be paid. So the consequence of this discounting is that instead of it being shown as an interest after EBITDA number, it will be shown as an expense before EBITDA number in case we discount it, factor it out. As far as you're right, when it's not legacy receivable, but it's more like a legacy business that had this receivable because of the nature of the contract between the subsidiary, that the company that we took over and became a subsidiary, versus the client. It incidentally so happens that the client is quite liquid and quite well rated, so we don't really have this problem. Going forward, we are avoiding becoming this kind of bringing this kind of a contract into this particular business. So there are two ways in which we see mitigation. One is, of course, we are moving into being a device maker and a solution provider, rather than suffer the consequence of even funding beyond the current receivables portion. And the second thing is the importance of these businesses will eventually stabilize, at much lower numbers, because the other businesses also continue to grow. So it's in the interim, when you look at a point in time, it always alarms people, saying that, oh, this quarter, if this was not there, what would have happened, and so on. But actually speaking, if you look at it, ours is not a quarterly business. We do hold orders worth about 8,000 plus crores as of September. And bulk of it is non-meter and these kinds of project related. That does not mean it's not important. It's just that the relative importance in a diversified portfolio is evenly balanced, evenly poised. But one quarter, if you look at it, always you can make alarming conclusions. But if you see it over time, you would realize that the entire so-called concentration of customer and concentration of business, you use around different parts of the business. We have about 6 verticals, and we do work with many customers, So from that perspective, we're not really worried about any of these things becoming a roadblock. Yes, improvements are required and we are working on it, including measures like working with the customers for supply chain finance discounting, working with suppliers for a more just-in-time kind of deliveries and so on. This takes time. We initiated this work, and I think over time we'll succeed in this too. And this year will give significant improvements in our net working capital. Last year we closed at around 85 days, and we proposed to close it at lower than that. Consequently, we'll also show cash on our books in terms of operating cash. So these are the two things you can probably measure as of March 31st of FY 26. And going forward, we'll be mindful of the fact that we are always mindful, and it will also be demonstrated in our actual numbers, because I don't think we're going to acquire any more businesses of this nature. This was a fortuitous acquisition. It does come with its own challenges, and which we have now overcome. So I'm pretty confident that this cash problem that supposedly imagined by a lot of people will remain in the realm of imagination, and we will still post growth without any significant fundraise or anything in the future, at least in the EMS business. Even the other two businesses, we have already done the first phase of fundraising, and until these capacity utilizations are about 80% plus, we don't propose to raise any more funds in any of these businesses for sure. Of course, we would always come back with opportunities, and that's something that we'll be doing injustice if we don't seize on the opportunity, but not for these existing businesses. No, we don't require any cash.
Got it. And with regard to Iskraemeco's profit mismatch, H1, and you explained it very well on the call as well. H1 FY25, you had some inventory write-offs which came through, and which is why you saw the loss, which thereafter converted to profit in H2. Talk to us about the possibility of inventory build-up and possibly getting obsolete in the future. Do you believe that was a complete one-off, or can that recur? I'm trying to get a sense of that.
Yeah. So while it is called inventory write-off, it actually contains developmental expenses. Whenever we develop a new design, there are lots of experiments people do. They use different chipsets, they do different things. So this was when Iskraemeco was a standalone entity themselves. So when the balance sheet was to be integrated with us, consolidated with us, we did give them instructions saying that give us a clean balance sheet and state it as true and as fair as possible, the numbers that represent inventories and so on. So basically that resulted in this particular write-off. They've been in operation for quite some time, about 3 to 4 years time, even before we took over. So these are in some sense costs of developments, not pertaining to current, let's say, production or manufacturing or any of those things. This is not even obsolescence. This is, I would rather classify this as a developmental cost. And so if you were to do a thought experiment and said 5 years ago we wanted to develop meters, we would have suffered similar 30-40 crores of expenses. In fact, in Kavach also we did invest some amount of money to make sure that the railways Kavach program was brought up. So it is more an accounting entry rather than a business-related, let's say, problem. And you can take it as one-off. But tomorrow, if we develop some other product and there are expenses, there would be expenses. But then we would always weigh against the benefits or the profits that we are likely to get, and then go forward with open eyes, saying that, okay, this is going to cost say this much. This is the profile of profits that are likely to come. This will give us this strategic advantage, and hence go or no go decisions will be made. So nothing normal here. It's fairly regular.
Jairam, one concern on the street is the heavy capex that you all have announced. And the other problem is the volatility in your cash flows. Tell me, how would you address these two concerns?
Sure. So the Capex not really bothersome, because the 3 projects that we are under, one is the existing EMS project, for which during the IPO, way back in November 22, we had raised some funds. And after that, no significant additions have been made from any other sources. QIP 1 was aimed primarily towards getting money for our semiconductor project and PCB project. QIP2 was raised for certain inorganic acquisitions and some other technology-related investments, which we are still working on. So as far as we are concerned, whatever money that has to be raised has been done. We also prepared a plan B in case there are, let's say, escalations in timelines of implementation. So far, there is no indication because both semicon as well as PCB projects are pretty much on schedule, and the kind of quality of customers and the quality of, let's say, project execution has been top class. So from that perspective, we got lucky, I guess, and also some little diligent work by our teams. But even if for some reason there are delays due to reasons external, to have certainly temporary lines of term debts, which are not like long term, but like bridge loans. We have sanction letters and all that, and we propose to use them in case time so demands. But we don't expect that to happen, and over time, I think we would start using cash generated from these two projects, which we think by FY28 they'll start generating cash itself, the semicon and the PCB project. So if there are any other capexes to be done, which we've got approvals for and so on, and then in our opinion does not require any fundraise, etc., according to what calculations we have done. So our equity will be funded by the cash we generate, plus of course there's some small term debt to overcome the delay in subsidies and all that. So this is as far as the capex is concerned. The volatility in the working capital, which is like receivables, etc. Whenever we onboard new clients, this happens. This used to happen in the past. Now we have made some structural corrections in the way in which we look at these things. So we are going to lean heavily on large customers and also the supply chain finance facilities that we have, so that we do our primary job, which is adding value in terms of manufacturing and design and other technology related things, and not really use ourselves as a banker for the customer.
Understood. But Jairam, that is exactly the concern that you actually just flagged off. The delay in grants. How would you want to address that? Because I believe you were banking on that for your capex funding.
Yes. So if you really notice, compared to the industry kind of situation, we have done much better. If you take if OSAT is an example, so ours was the last one to get approved, and we are the first to ship out. And we have now acquired 3 clients totally. And we are well on our way to kind of overcome any possible delays there. As far as the PC board is concerned, we deliberately decided to do the commencement of operations by 1st of April because we are covered under a PLI scheme and would like the entire plant to be fully ready before we start the PLI clock ticking, because PLI is for limited period of time, like 6 years or so. So we didn't want to just do some small amount of shipping in the previous year and then consume one of those years. So this is all at this point in time. I don't see any major delays in any of these things. In fact, we're kind of ahead of schedule as far as that is concerned. And that is the reason why I think you did see the government take a proactive step to announce the subsidies, etc., and publicly, because they realized that the government also would like to back a fast-running and ready horse.
Mr. Sampath, sorry, but we're going to have to slip into a very, very short commercial commitment. Let's slip into that break. We'll come back to you as soon as that break is over. Please stay with us.